Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is SmartTCG, and today I'm going to be going over my current Obsidian Flames tier list. Now, Obsidian Flames is the brand new set that has most recently released over the past couple of weeks, and it has shaken up the metagame quite a bit. So today we're going to be going over my current tier list, what decks are good, what decks are not, and exactly what you should be playing. But anyways, if you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We'll be doing a giveaway at 5,000 subscribers, which we're really close to. So hopefully we're going to be able to hit that soon. But anyways, Obsidian Flames is the brand new set. It will be legal for Pittsburgh regionals in a few weeks. I'll be attending, and I'm really excited to see exactly how the metagame shakes up. But I have been doing lots of testing, so I have a pretty good idea of exactly what decks are good as of right now. So we have tier S, 1, 2, 3, and then the fun tier. Might be only 1 or 2 decks in tier S, and then tier 1 will be the decks that are very, very strong, can definitely win tournaments, very few flaws and poor matchups. Tier 2, solid decks but have a couple of flaws or maybe some very specific bad matchups that are popular decks. And then tier 3, kind of mediocre decks, but have some potential, but like plenty of flaws. And then fun will just be fun decks. But anyways, let's hop into it. We're gonna hop into first some of the brand new Obsidian Flames exclusive decks that have most recently came out, starting with Toadscruel. Now, this is a card that has been getting lots of talk recently, as it does hit Charizard EX for weakness. I most recently uploaded a video on it, and I think it does have a decent amount of potential as of right now. Being able to hit up to 280 and over 300 with a choice belt is very, very powerful. Its ability also is great against decks like Lost Zone Toolbox. Anything that has an energy attached to it cannot be affected by your opponent's attacks, which means things like Sableye, which places damage counters that's not actually dealing damage, it's an effect of an attack, is really, really good. So you kind of prevent them from doing that and shut down a lot of things, which is really nice. So Toadscruel, I think, is a very, very powerful card, and I think is going to see some success. Can be a little bit inconsistent because you are typically playing the Sharam line to be able to flood the board with energies, which can be a little bit clunky at times, but I think it is a respectable deck in general. We're going to put Rev Room in the fun tier. I think it's cool. Being able to reduce damage, having a lot of HP is kind of nice, but you just don't deal a whole lot of damage. I think you just kind of get outclassed. Same with Tyranitar, being a stage 2, does deal a decent amount of damage at a hefty cost, though, being a stage 2. I think just kind of gets outclassed by, some of the other decks currently. But anyways, moving on to the top dog of Obsidian Flames, we have Charizard. I don't think it's a tier S deck. I think it is a tier 1 deck as of right now. Very similar to when Gardevoir EX first released earlier this season. A lot of players were questioning how good that deck actually was, and the biggest reason is that players weren't able to build early perfect 60s. People weren't necessarily able to find that perfect list for that tournament until we saw Tord get second place at the European International Championships, and we're really able to see exactly how you should be playing Gardevoir. So with upcoming regionals like Pittsburgh, Peoria, Sacramento, Toronto, and more, all being Obsidian Flames legal, we're going to get a much better idea on how exactly you should be playing Charizard, because there are lots of ways. Do you play the heavier Arceus V-Star variants? Do you play Bibarel or not? How many Pidgeots do you play? What's your Charizard line? Do you play Charmeleons or not? There's tons of questions that a lot of people are still, asking and trying to figure out with Charizard. So I think a lot of lists are going to be refined, or are going to be unrefined. And I think the more refined lists will see more success, and I think we'll kind of get a better idea, especially at Pittsburgh, how good the deck is going to be and how we should be building it. I think a lot of top testing groups are going to, start to actually kind of refine this deck. And I think once it gets once we get a solid like 58, 59 cards that pretty much are, I guess, like the standard, I think this deck is going to do absolutely amazing. It's just so powerful. I mean, being able to attach 3 energy with its ability, being able to hit over 300 damage towards the end of the game, having Pidgeot being able to search for any card once per turn is just ridiculous. Having Starbirth as well. You have Starbirth as your V-Star, which is just crazy. So yeah, the deck has it all. It's just going to come down to who can build that perfect 60 first, but it's really, really strong. Anyways, moving on to the deck that just won Worlds, we have Mew VMAX. Mew VMAX is still very good. However, I think that it's not going to be as powerful as it was at the most recent World Championships in Yokohama, because it is a very easily techable deck. Pretty much anyone can throw in a Spiritomb, anyone can throw in a Drapion and instantly turn their matchup against Mew into 50-50 or favorable. So that's going to cause issues, as most decks are going to have a reason to do that, and decks like Charizard are dark with a ton of HP, which is very, very difficult for them to deal with. So I think it's still a tier 1 deck. It's inherently incredibly strong. Being able to turn 1 Meloetta is just ridiculous. Having Genesect as a draw power is just unbelievable, and it has all the tools that it needs to be successful. However, other decks have tools to beat it, and that's important always to look at. So tier 1 deck, very strong, and I think we'll see success for sure. Moving into, I guess, some of the other decks, I think this is probably tier 3 along with Vespiquen as well. I don't think they're necessarily amazing. I think Vespiquen actually would have more potential, but it's weak to dark, unfortunately, because it is a psychic type, as it is a terra type. So I think Charizard is going to cause a lot of problems for that. So and then this deck here, I don't think it's necessarily that great. Its ability is cool to limit bench. However, you don't do a whole lot of damage, so I think it just kind of gets overran by something. So I think that's in currently the tier 3 range. Anyways, moving throughout some of the other decks, we have Lawson Giratina. Lawson Giratina is amazing right now. It has a decent matchup against Charizard. Mew can pretty much beat anything. Star Requiem is unbelievable, probably the best V-Star attack in the game. Having Path to the Peak as well, just being a Lawson deck, so you have a pretty strong, consistent engine too. It just has everything that it needs to be successful. So I think that it deserves its spot in tier 1. Moving throughout some of the other Lost Box lists, I think that Lost Box Charizard is probably bottom of tier 2. I think Turbo is probably top of tier 2. It's not as strong as it used to be, because things like Toad Scroll are going to cause issues, I think, for it. Charizard is really difficult to deal with just because it has so much HP, and decks like Fusion Mew and Lawson Giratina have very viable ways of beating you. So I think that Turbo is top of tier 2 as of right now. Definitely the weakest it's been in quite some time. Lawson Gudra, very, very bottom of tier 2 deck. It'll eventually move down as we continue to put more decks in tier 2. It did just actually do pretty decent at the World Championships. I think there were 1 or 2 in top 32. I think there was 1 that saw some success, which is pretty cool to see, because Gudra hasn't necessarily seen very much success recently. So it's nice to see it actually, performing well. So Gudra, 2D deck, pretty cool to see it back and performing decently. So anyways, going over the Arceus decks, these are all very important. We'll start off with the easy ones to rank. I think Arc Regidrago is a cool deck, but I don't necessarily think it's as good as the other Arc variants, along with like Arc Gyarados. We now have some interesting decks. I think Arc Vulpix is actually the best Arceus variant as of right now, because Vulpix's attack prevents it from taking damage from any Pokemon that has an ability, which means that something like Charizard actually cannot hit into the Vulpix. Now Charizard can add in Path to fix that issue, but if they can then remove the Path and then hit with another Vulpix, you have a shot at beating them. So I think that Vulpix is definitely the way to go, maybe similar to Alex Szymanski's European International Championship winning list with the Duraludon and also the Vulpix. I definitely think this deck has potential, and I think will probably be the list that sees more play. Arc Giratina Judge Path is still solid, however, it's just outclassed by a lot of other decks now. I think more players are adding in heavy stadium counts to counter Path, and it can be a little bit inconsistent at times as well. We're going to put Arc Duraludon. This is Arc Duraludon Umbreon, and I believe this is just straight Arc Umbreon. Arc Duraludon, I think, is probably one of the lower Arceus decks. I think that it's just... Duraludon's just not amazing right now. It struggles to Fusion Mew. Lawson Tina just demolishes it, which is a problem as well. And decks like Fusion Mew should have no problem, and just pretty much all the top decks have no like really big problem against Arc Duraludon right now, especially because Lugia I think will go down in popularity. It loses a little bit of what makes it special, which I think is really, really important to take into account. So yeah, we'll put that deck there as of right now. Gengar, tier 3, it's okay. Not necessarily able to one-shot everything anymore, as Pokemon have got more and more HP. It's a little bit inconsistent too, so we'll put that in that. Chien-Pao Baxcalibur is very good right now. I think it's actually ahead of Mew. Chien-Pao is amazing, did exceptionally well at Worlds, and I think just gets even better with how the metagame is shaking up. Can pretty much beat anything in the format, and it is just really, really good. I mean, being able to have pretty much unlimited damage takes away the problem of Charizard having 330 HP. That's not that big of an issue for Chien-Pao. You just need 6 energy, and you're dealing 360, which is all you need, whereas some decks can't really reach that number. So Chien-Pao has no problem reaching that number, has a decent matchup into decks like Gardevoir, also Mew as well. It's okay versus Mew, but other than that, I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's pretty good. Moving on, throughout some of the other decks here, we have Lugia Single Strike. I think Lugia Single Strike is still good. I think it's at top of tier 2. I think it is the best Lugia variant, although Lugia Colorless did just most recently win the Seniors World Championships. Gabriel Fernandez was able to win. So I definitely think that that deck is also potentially good. I just think it's worse than Single Strike, because Single Strike has the ability to one-shot things with like the Charizard with something like Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, whereas the colorless version does not really have that option. So I think that's one issue sometimes you run into with it. Moving throughout some of these other decks, we have Reggie's at tier 3. I think Reggie's is a fun deck for sure, but it's not in fun tier, because I think it's a little bit more competitively viable. Obviously gaining Super Rod back was nice, kind of helped it out a little bit, but it is still very inconsistent. Just not having things like Aurora Energy is really difficult for it. So or just any of like the other energies, like Speed Energy. There's just so many energy you don't have, which is the problem. So yeah, we'll put that right there. And yeah, it used to be really good, but it's just lost all of the special energies that made it so powerful. So anyways, at tier 3 there. Anyways, moving on to some of the other decks here. We have Gardevoir Mewtwo. I think it's just worse Gardevoir. It's just slower, more inconsistent. I think it's probably at bottom of tier 2. I think it would be kind of disrespectful to put it that low, just because Gardevoir is just such an inherently a powerful deck, right? Kyogre is probably better than these other Lost Zone variants, but still goes kind of in the middle to bottom of tier 2. Still has potential, but I think Turbo is just more consistent, and in this format you just need to go fast. Kyogre is not necessarily amazing into a lot of the top decks as well right now, so I think that Turbo is better. Turbo has a better Gardevoir matchup, has a better Tina matchup I think as well, so I think focusing on those matchups with Turbo is more important than actually having Kyogre. Chempa Palkia, Cyrus Davis, she most recently got 9th place at Worlds with it. I actually was hyping it up a little bit. I thought it was pretty good. I definitely think it still remains good. I think it is just a little bit worse than Chien-Pao Caliber. It's more consistent, however the power level is significantly lower, which is an issue that you sometimes run into. But if you're able to take an early lead, you can pretty much overwhelm your opponents really easily. So anyways, we'll put that there. DTE Mew is in an interesting spot. I don't think it's great anymore. I think its best shot was actually Worlds, when a bunch of people were cutting Spiritomb. I actually thought this deck had potential to shine. However, that is not the case anymore. I think everyone's going to be adding back in things like Spiritomb, or things like Drapion, and those cause issues for this deck. So I think Mew's one chance to come back, specifically the DTE Mew one, was at Worlds, but I think if people add back in Spiritomb, it's going to go back in its cave and hide for a long time. So DTE Mew, unfortunate to see its downfall, but it just really can't handle Spiritomb as well as Fusion Mew can. Dialga, cool deck, can sometimes pop off and beat decks and surprise people, but I think it's in that tier 3 as of right now, and I think that we'll kind of just start throwing more decks in tier 3. We'll probably put these in tier 3 here. United Wings is okay, just kind of gets overwhelmed against these big HP Pokemon. Control is kind of cool. I think Control has some potential. Sander Logic did play it to Worlds, I believe went 4-2-2 or something like that, so it did okay. Maybe it was 3-3-2 or something like that, but it's a cool deck as of right now, but I don't think it's as good as Control used to be. I think Mewtwo V Union was one of the last great Control decks that we had, or someone like the Heavy Evil Talk Control builds also were kind of cool, but as of right now I think Control is kind of struggling. Urshifu Inteleon is still very good. I think it's top of tier 2. I don't think it's in tier 1, but it has potential versus pretty much all these decks to win. The big problem actually is this matchup. The Fusion Mew matchup is really bad, which is the problem the deck has. So I think that Urshifu is good. However, its Fusion Mew matchup is rough, so you probably need a tech for that. But it can beat a lot of these other decks, like the evolution decks it can beat, like Charizard. It can beat just by, you know, taking out their Charmanders really quickly with Inteleon pings, Alakazam, stuff like that. You do decent into Gardevoir as well. However, the Caliber matchup's actually kind of difficult, and also Mew can be really difficult too. But I think it's inherently a very powerful deck. Shadow Rider goes in tier 3 as well. We'll just toss that down to there. This is not entirely ordered, by the way, so if one deck is not above one deck, that's not necessarily super relevant, but tier 2 and 1 and above are all pretty much ordered. Zoroark as well goes into the tier 3. Tinkaton I think is a fun deck. I don't know, I've seen a lot of people actually playing it on ladder, and I don't know exactly why it's very good right now. It's fun though. It's definitely fun. You can pull off some pretty cool combos. Tinglu top of tier 3, if players know how to play around it. I think it's relatively weak, but if it gets set up and you can cheese your opponents pretty quickly, if you can do that, it's actually pretty decent. So Gardevoir goes in tier S. It's still the best deck in the format. It can beat Charizard. A lot of people are like, oh, it can't beat Charizard. Yeah, it can. It can pretty much beat anything. And I think that still deserves its spot in tier S. I think Double Reversal that Tord used to get second at the World Championships is a really cool inclusion and helps out against these big HP decks like Charizard. So I definitely think that Gardevoir will remain near the top. But anyways, this is my tier list. Let me know what you think of it in the comments, and thank you so much for all the support as always. I appreciate it. I'm excited for Obsidian Flames. As I said, I believe earlier, I will be attending Pittsburgh Regionals, which has the brand new card, so I'm stoked to compete in that. But anyways, thank you so much for the support as always. I appreciate it, and I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out. If you're looking to improve your game, I do offer coaching on Medify. I was ranked in the top 16 ranked players in the entire world, and I know what it takes to reach the next level. I have a free coaching consultation if you're interested in booking that to kind of figure out exactly what coaching is and whether or not it is something for you. I also have individual sessions, event decklist preparation, replay reviews, training plans, and more. So if you have any questions, make sure to book that consultation if you're interested, and we can kind of go over exactly what coaching is and how it will make you into the very best player that you can possibly be. But with that being said, thank you so much for sticking around. I appreciate it. This is Smart TCG, and I'll speak with you all again soon. Thank you so much for the support. Peace.